just wanted to do a quick intro here. This is Tanya Rocha. She helps me out, and she's also a client. So I've asked her to join today, just provide a little feedback and help keep me on track as well. So I'm going to actually close my video, and maybe Tanya, if you don't mind as well, just that way we can focus on the slides that we're going to go through. So we titled the session, "How much money do you need to retire, and what do you need to do to have a successful retirement?" And the genesis of that, the topic really came from a newsletter we put out earlier this month. And we were making some comments on a Bank of Montreal survey that they asked Canadians how much money they're going to need to retire on. And the average answer from Canadians was $1.7 million. So a quick question for you, Tanya. When you hear $1.7 million, does that number sound like enough or too much or too little? Just your opinion. What do you think of that number?
I think what first comes to mind is, how the heck am I going to find $1.7 million?
Well, that's a good question. That's for sure. But I don't know. When I look at that number, I'm not really sure if that's the right number or the wrong number. But it doesn't mean we can't figure out if 1.7 million or any other number is enough for you and your husband Alex, or for any other client. Now, we said in this invite we wanted to show people how to have a financially successful retirement. But for anyone to plan and have a successful retirement, you really actually need to start at the end of your journey. In other words, you need to almost reverse engineer the question and first figure out what you want your retirement to look like, more specifically in the form of an income. Then we can figure out, if what you've got saved and what you're going to save and all the other sources of income, pension plans, Canada Pension Plan, if all of that added up is going to be enough to fund your retirement. And we always start with the end goal in mind. And I want to give you an example, because this is really important, this information. I want to give you an example of why this is important. So I just threw up a picture up on the screen, and Tanya, I'm going to ask you this question. So we're looking at a mountain here with a flag on top. So if your objective was to climb this mountain, Tanya, what would be your objective?
To reach the top safely.
That's a good answer, and that's how I answered the question the first time anyone asked me that question. But that's certainly part of the objective. You want to get to the top of the mountain, but you also want to get down safely. Not only get there safely, but get down safely. And the picture is really just it's a great word picture for retirement. You're up the mountain years. That's like your pre-retirement, your accumulation years. So before, that's your 40 or 50, 60, whatever age you get to. That's where the flag is. The top of the mountain is the day you retire. And the down the mountain years, that's your retirement. That's your distribution years, right? That's when we start to come down and start to pull the money out of our proverbial financial backpack. But yeah, the thing to keep in mind is that the up the mountain phase is a lot different than the down the mountain phase. Going up, all you're concerned about is making money, getting rate of return. But going down the mountain, pulling money out of your accounts, and you start spending your money. So you have to have different strategies coming down the mountain than you do going up. And so for that reason, when we're doing planning with people, we focus a lot of time with our clients in determining how much income they really want to have and how to potentially create that income during retirement. Because sometimes the biggest pile of money doesn't win the game. It's the biggest income that wins the game. So if you're physically climbing the mountain, you pack your backpack with all your supplies to get you up the mountain and down the mountain. And the same is for retirement. You want to pack your financial tool chest with everything you need, not only to accumulate money, but also be prepared to pull that money out on the backside. So, Tanya, another question. and this is we're going to talk about probably the biggest problem in retirement. And a lot of our planning focuses around this problem. So Tanya, imagine yourself, I don't know, 60, we'll just say 65 is a retirement age. So imagine yourself 65 years old. You get to that top of the mountain, you plant your flag, and you say, okay, I don't want to work anymore. I'm done. And you're peering down the backside of that mountain. And there's going to be one question, probably two questions actually, but one primary question that you'd love to have the answer, but it's impossible to answer. So I'm going to ask you, in your future life, you're 65 years old, Tanya, how long are you going to live?
Awesome question. I have no clue. Could be 2 years, could be 20 years, no idea.
Yeah, exactly. You have no idea, right? And if you did know the answer, that's not a good thing, by the way, but you don't know the answer. And putting this in context of retirement planning is, it's really hard to figure out how much of a pile of money you can spend each year if you don't know how long you need to spend it for, right? Like if you knew retirement was 2 years, then you divide everything by 2 and spend half of it now and half of it next year and you're done, right? But the fact is you don't know how long it's going to be. Another question for you, any idea how long it could potentially be? Like what you think a normal retirement looks like in terms of time?
I would say 20 to 25 years.
Yeah, like that's reasonable to assume, like take you up to age 85, 90.
Yeah, still there.
But the fact is, sorry, I'm still here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you, John.
Okay, great. So statistically speaking, like no one is well, we're all statistics, but we don't know where we land on this continuum, right? So if you are 65 years old and you're trying to figure out, well, how long am I going to live? Fact is, statistically speaking, if the average female age 65 years old lives at least to age 91, like 50%, you have a 50% chance of making it to age 91. And if you're married, you and Alex, if you're both 65, there's a 50% chance that one of you is going to live to 94. So it's like a 30-year time period, right? And this counts everyone. This is healthy people, unhealthy people. Like I don't have the chart that says, what does a healthy 65-year-old look like? It's probably a little bit longer than what we're looking at. So retirement, no one knows exactly. And we need to plan for the long end, right? Because you don't want to run out of money. But it also tells me the odds are on your side that you're going to live a long time. So it's a big problem that we're trying to solve in this retirement equation. And the other problem is what you're going to earn on your money. But we're going to talk about that in a minute. So I want to share with you a few ideas today on how to potentially deal with some of the issues that you're going to face in retirement. And I think the best way to do that is for us to walk through what a successful planning process looks like. And so what I'd like to do now is pull up a real life plan that we've been working on with a real life client. And I'll show you some of the things that we look for and the problems we try to intercept in order to help our clients. Sound good?
Yes, it does.
Just going to switch screens here. Tanya, do you have any questions, or has anyone actually asked a question yet that we should talk about?
So you're saying that you're going to show me a plan. So when you're putting a plan together, what kind of information do you need in order to put a plan together?
Well, actually, you know what I'll do is I'm going to introduce you to Mark and Sarah Smith. Am I showing you my screen, my planning screen here?
Yes.
Great. So when we look for information from people, the fuller the information, the better. And like whenever you're dealing with any situation in business or financial planning, the more information we have from people, the better advice we can dispense to people. So we like to know everything. Basically, anything financially related to people is a good thing for us to know, because you never know what financial tool we're going to use to help that person out. So it could be anything that they invest in, bank account information, income tax information, company benefit plan information, life insurance, a whole gambit. There's a big questionnaire that we like people to fill out. But having said that, I've run into situations in the past where, time, our biggest challenge oftentimes in working with people is time. A lot of people don't have time to devote to this because they're being pulled from a lot of different ends, whether it's kids or activities with kids, their own activities, work commitments, and so forth. So I always encourage people to engage in planning, even if we can't get full information, because we can steer people in the right direction. But I'm going to share with you the information that we got from Mark and Sarah, and hopefully that helps answer the question. So when we ask for information, this might give you a clear idea of what we're looking for. So we deal with clients' information. As I said, we look for detailed information from people. So in their case, they're executives. They don't own a company, but if they did own a company, we would look for information about their company, whether or not they have, what their share structure is like, if they have a holding company, if they have a building that they own, if they have loans in their company, and what they're drawing, all kinds of information. But that doesn't apply to them. But for them, and that doesn't apply to many people. The vast majority of people that we deal with are not business owners, they're executives. But in their case, Mark and Sarah, they're 50 years old. They've got a couple of kids who are, one's finishing school, one's entering post-secondary school. They make a good income. And by the way, this isn't everyone that we deal with, right? We deal with people that have a family income of north of $1 million. We deal with people that have $75,000 in annual income. These are sort of in the middle of the typical client that we deal with. And by the way, the planning that we do, a lot of the planning we deal with is generic, meaning that the numbers are different, but the concepts are the same. So keep that in mind as we walk through this. So if you're not this person, then add a zero or take a zero off. That's really what I'm getting at. So again, between the two of them, they make good money, almost $400,000. Between the two of them, they have about $500,000 in investments, maybe $600,000. They don't have a pension plan, like an income type pension plan, but they do have the Canada pension plan, and they're on track to get old age security. They have a nice house, $1.8 million. They have a mortgage house. They're well insured. That's something we walk them through. Mark and Sarah each have term insurance to take care of them while their kids are still in school and to take care of any mortgages. I'll point this out. Mark does have this other insurance policy. We call it a permanent life insurance policy. It's worth about $300,000. That'll come up in our discussion in a little bit, because we're going to refer to that. Beyond that, really what it came down to is when we wanted to drill down to find out what they want to have happen in life. Initially they said, okay, well, we want to retire at 65. That's our goal. They weren't really sure, but they didn't think they could retire earlier because they weren't sure that they had enough money. But so they started off saying, yeah, 65 sounds good. And when we sort of backtracked their income, we know what they make right now. We know what they take home right now. They wanted to actually have a fairly similar income to what they have right now, because they burn through a lot of cash. They have a good lifestyle. They both play golf. They like to go south a lot. So one thing that they recognize, and this is because Mark's parents died when he was younger, is that, and the parents were younger, they want to enjoy life when they retire. So they want to they're assuming they're going to be healthy in their first 10 years, and they want to have an income of 13,000 a month during the first 10 years that they're retired, because they essentially want to live on 10,000 and then use the extra $3,000 to go south in the winter to do the vacationing, the traveling that they want to do. And then they're okay with backing off because they know they're likely not going to be as healthy later on in life. They're okay with backing off on some of the income and some of the activities. So again, they're 50 years old. It's a long ways away. Like we're talking 15 years before they retire, and then another 20 or 30 years on top of that. So it's a long way away, but we're trying to benchmark things and say, okay, well, here's where you're at right now, and here's I'll jump into that. I'll jump into what we advise them to do. So that's the questionnaire right there. If that answers your question. What I'd like to do now is really jump into the model, the projections, and this is important to do. So if you're wondering about how to have a successful retirement, the first place to start is to model yourself going forward and say, okay, well, where am I at right now? I got to save this amount. I'm going to earn this rate of return going forward. What's all this going to be worth when I actually want to retire, and what kind of income is it going to produce? So that's where we start with Mark and Sarah and anyone else. So I just want to walk you through the screen for a second, and this pie chart here, it gives you an answer in terms of where they're at, in terms of how close or on track they are to achieving their retirement goals. And 60% means, and I'm going to pull up the income summary. 60% means that they've got 60% of their income covered in retirement. So in other words, if we look at this bar chart here, this is where they're at right now. They're making money for the next 10 years. We're showing inflation adjustments going forward. And then, happy birthday, they retire 65, and they start receiving CPP, old age security. That's these blue lines. These dark blue lines represent them withdrawing money from their retirement accounts, okay? And the red lines, red is bad. Red is where there's a shortfall. So you can see the money that they've saved and they're going to withdraw the blue lines. The shortfall in terms of where they want to have income be for the rest of their lives is shown in red. So that's the starting point, right? So not looking good so far, right? 60%. So the choice here is, do you want to reduce your income, or what else can we do? Like we got to make some adjustments. And one of the things I initially talked to them about, I'm just going to shift gears here a little bit. This is the screen where we go to when we're doing planning and looking at modeling different scenarios, right? And there's some scenarios built in here, and I can change the dynamics of this chart based on implementing a strategy. So this isn't really a strategy, but I suggested to Mark and Sarah, what if you guys saved a bit more money? You guys are big income earners, kids are in school now, you've got the RESP figured out. What would happen if you guys put away an extra $2,000 a month? So I showed them what that would do. And that erases some of the red here. That's what we're trying to solve for. We're trying to get rid of red. That's a shortfall in their projected income. And that took care of a few years. And honestly, it took them from 60% to 66% in terms of solving that retirement equation. And that didn't really excite them because they didn't really want to put more money away for retirement. And that's fine. So we took that off the table and started to look in different areas. One thing that I'd like to talk to all clients about, and this is something that everyone on this call should be investigating when the time comes, is what is their Canada pension plan going to produce for them? Because everyone, no, I shouldn't say everyone, but most people are going to be eligible to receive Canada Pension Plan. And I'm just going to switch slides here. I want to make sure everyone's on side with what Canada Pension Plan is and what they're going to be entitled to. So Tanya, can you see the CPP slide?
Yes, I can.
Great. Okay, so just so everyone's clear, when you turn 60, actually, but normally it's 65, you're eligible to start receiving Canada Pension Plan. And the amount that you're receiving from Canada Pension Plan is really a function of how much you've worked during your time, I think it's post age 18, and how much you've earned and how much you've participated. The most that you could be eligible for if you're a 65 today is about $1,300. And again, that's dependent on how much you've earned. The average person in 2022 earns $717. So it can vary based on your income and your participation. One thing that a lot of people aren't aware of is that you can start taking CPP earlier than 65, but they give you a lower amount. Conversely, you can take CPP after age 65 and they give you a higher amount. They give you a raise, right? So this is something that not every case is the same, but most of the time, at least with the people I deal with, we encourage people to delay taking CPP. And we're not talking about delaying retirement. We're talking about delaying one of the income components that's available to you. Because if you were to start CPP today, you get about $15,000 per year from that program. If you chose to delay it to age 70, they give you 42% more than what you're eligible for. So they're going to give you about $22,000 a year for the rest of your life, by the way. So we're talking about lifetime income streams here. So you're sacrificing not having $15,000 for 5 years in exchange for $22,000 for the rest of your life. So, you know, if you happen to pass away early, you kind of lose on that game. But if you're healthy and you figure you're going to live a long time, financially, you're way better off to delay taking Canada Pension Plan. Any questions on that, Tanya?
So far, I follow.
Great. Okay. And there's a second component, and I'm going to cover it off right now while we're on the screens here. There's old age security. So every Canadian is eligible for old age security. It's a standard amount. Everyone gets it. And if you're 65 today, you get 687. And they actually bump it up when you're 75 to 756. And it's not a function of you working, it's just a function of you being Canadian. And again, it has the opportunity you have the opportunity to delay taking old age security. And they'll bump it up if you wait to age 70 by 36%. So another nice raise if you hold off on it, right? So switching gears here, I'll go back to our projection. Say, okay, well, what if Mark and Sarah delay taking CPP? What does that do to their retirement? So we're going to click that on, and we're going to click old age security. And when we look at the chart,
John, are you going to flip back to Mark and Sarah's screen? Oh, there we go.
Thank you, Tanya. So here's where they were, right? And if we delay taking CPP and old age security, you'll see that the numbers start to change and much in their favor, right? So we're eliminating a lot of the red here. And if we look back here, they were at 60%. We've improved their retirement income by 8%. You know, 8 from 60 is probably about 10%, 13% improvement on their retirement income. And by the way, that's just by making some small adjustments, them not investing in anything different or buying any product or whatever. So able to improve their situation. Now, I'm going to get into another strategy here, which involves planning and it involves making some modifications in terms of what they're doing. So I'm going to just change my share again. Okay. So before I get to that point, so Tanya, I want to paint another picture for a second here. So let's say you've got, let's say you have $1 million in your retirement plan, and this is a concept I want to sort of paint a picture around that we did
Sorry,
for
John,
Mark and Sarah.
I think when you were sharing, you flipped back to old age.
Yeah, and that was by design. I can throw it back up here if you want.
Oh, okay.
Sorry about that. So let's say you're retiring right now, and this is a strategy that we use for Mark. Let's say in your world, you had $1 million to live on for the rest of your life. Knowing that you are going to live who knows how long, I have a question for you. Do you know what rate of return you're going to earn on your investments in the future?
I wish I knew. I wish I knew.
Yeah, and you know what? No one knows the answer to that question. I don't know. Like what I do know is last year was a rough year. This year started off a little bit better, but I don't know how it's going to end up, and no one knows how it's going to end up the year after that, and so on and so on. But what we know is that over time, investment returns vary. They can be bad like last year, down 10, 15%. They can be good, like in years past, up 10, 15%. They can be mediocre, 1 or 2%. In terms of designing an income out of a portfolio that fluctuates, it's really hard because if something goes down in value and you pull money out, then your account balances go down a lot, right? So the investment industry has come up with a formula or guidance to tell you how much money you can spend in a year if you want to make that pile last. So think about it this way. You got a pile of money, it's going to earn some money and lose some money in a given year, and you're going to take some money out. So the investment industry says, you know what, if you take out 3 to 4% of that pile and spend it, that pile should last 25, 30 years. That's the guidance that they give. It's not guaranteed, but it generally works. And there's a term for it. They call it a safe withdrawal method. Some people call it the 4% rule, but that's sort of an industry term, if you will, a rule of thumb. So what that really means is that if you have $1 million, that $1 million really equals $35,000 per year of income. So that's one way to do it. Now, any questions about that before I move on to another way to do it?
So far, I'm following you.
Okay, good. So the other way to do it is if you created a pension plan with your money, and I'll step back from the second side of the page here. Tanya, I know you're involved with teachers, both with your kids, and you're also involved in the school board. You know, teachers, what does their retirement look like? What happens when they retire and they stop working? What do they do for retirement income?
They have a pretty awesome pension. One I wish I had.
I know. It's one I wish I had too, right? Like they get income for life, right? And that's really why we're on this call today. Like people want to have income for life, and they've got that. And unfortunately, that's not available in most companies. If you work for a government, crown corporations, some companies do offer them, but they're few and far between these days. But a lot of people don't realize that you can actually set up a self-made pension plan. That's what I refer to it as. And the way that works is that the technical name for the product is a life annuity. So what that means, the way it works is that, let's say you go to retire at 65 and you've invested all your money into an RRSP. You can actually take your RRSP, invest it with an insurance company, and in return, the insurance company will pay you a guaranteed annual income, and these days it's around 8% for the rest of your life. Like they'll it doesn't matter if you live to age 80 or 90, 100, 120. Like they will pay you 8% for the rest of your life on whatever you give them, right? Well, sounds pretty good, right? But there is a caveat to that. And the caveat is, and at least it's a caveat if you're married. Because think about this for a second. Let's say you and Alex have one of these annuity products, and you're getting that nice big income. So you invest $750,000, like you see on the screen here. You get $60,000 a year for the rest of your life. The caveat is that if you die, let's say Alex invested this money with the insurance company, and he was getting the $60,000, and 10 years down the road, life comes at you, and Alex isn't around anymore, then the income stops because Alex has stopped at that point. I hope Alex isn't on the line right now, but sorry if you are, Alex.
He's not.
I'm not sure if that's good or not, but anyway, the way that we can solve that potential problem is to have life insurance in place on Alex's life, right? So should Alex pass away early, right, within the first 10 or 15 years, there's an influx of cash from the life insurance policy that's going to replace any income that stops because this pension stops, and then you can go on living on that insurance payout and continue to receive your $60,000. So this is a strategy. It's a very high level concept I'm showing you here. There's lots of detail, and we could spend an hour going over this in great detail. But essentially, this is a way that we can position people at retirement to produce way more lifetime income without any downside, right? So this is what we did with Mark, actually. So I want to flip back to our model. And before I do you have any questions about that before I flip off?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Good. And by the way, we're going to take some questions at the end of this call, just to cover anything off that people might have questions about. And we're happy to either email people after the call as well, or jump on a individual call if you want to cover anything that we might have missed. So I want to show people what that would have done to Mark in terms of the projection going forward. So that changing his investments to an annuity, I think it was at age 65, might have been a little bit later, really took away a lot of the red here. So when we were working with Mark and Sarah, they were starting to realize that, they started off at a bad place, but they can start to see that, hey, there's some things that we can do to close the gap here, so to speak. And it's kind of funny because at this point, they actually started to say to me, gee, you know what, I think we can put some money away. We're not sure we can put $2,000 a month away, but I think we can come up with some money, because they started to feel that they could really achieve some goals. And they haven't decided if they're not going to do that. It's an ongoing process, and we're hoping to meet with them fairly soon to figure out what the next steps are. But before we even did that, we talked about another, I won't necessarily call it a strategy, but I'll call it a resource. And Mark and Sarah are in a nice home, but one thing they realized that they may not need that big home for a long time, and they've even talked about downsizing. And so I said, well, why don't we look at what that might do to you? Because there's a bit of a shortfall, and sometimes you got to look at all resources available. And it's great to model these things so people can see what the impacts are. So I said, well, what if you downsize into a really nice townhouse or a really nice condo? So they sell their house for 1.8, go down to 1.3. What would $500,000 do to your retirement? So if they plug that into some sort of an investment and looked at using it for income later in life. That alone really takes them, you know, to a whole position. They're 97% there, and keep in mind we're projecting income out to age 95 for the both of them here. We like to err on the side of caution and over plan. So there's certainly a lot of potential there if they were even to do that. And that even got them to think about other resources. And they brought up the fact that Sarah might be in line for an inheritance. And some people like to model these things and some people don't. And I said, okay, well, if you want to give me some numbers, we can look and see what that would do. And when we plugged in those numbers, you know, that really had a huge impact on their potential income in the future, as well as potential assets. If we look at what their projected assets would be if they did actually sell their home and inherit, I think it was 700,000 or something like that. This line here indicates what their assets would be going forward throughout retirement. And you can see it's, you know, they've got well over $1 million, even, you know, up to life expectancy here. So there's a lot, you know, that opens their people's eyes to a lot of different options and possibilities. And one thing I always like to look at is, you know, this is rosy. It's everything is constant going forward. So we always like to crash test people a little bit and say, okay, well, what if, you know, what if previous, we're going to look at looks like I've been booted out of my software here, so hang on one second. What if the market crashes right at retirement? So they are at 112. It doesn't really affect their position that much. And we can run through a multitude of different scenarios. Here we said, you know, what if Mark passes away early? You know, Sarah's still on track to receive a healthy retirement. What if you live longer? There's a big buffer there for them. So, you know, we like to cover off all of the bases. So, you know, as it pertains to people on this call, I think it's really important that you model your information in some form or fashion. Look at different options that are available, both things that are available, Canada Pension Plan and any other pension plans available, and take advantage of programs that are out there, you know, like the deferring your pension plan. That's really what I'm trying to get at. So that's really what I wanted to cover off today. Tanya, did you have any questions, or have you checked the Q&A to see if people had any other questions?
Yeah, so I do have a question, and that is, at what point should I sit down with you and with Alex? Like, at what point should I sit down? Should we sit down and figure out a plan? Is there a magic age to establishing this plan, or can it be done at any time?
No, I guess the answer is there's no magic age. The earlier you do this, the better, really. The better the result will be to your plan. Because if you wait till, well, just as an example, let's say you figure you have enough money and then you decide, okay, at age 65 or 70, I'm going to do my retirement plan. Yeah, there's some modifications we can make at that point, but they're limited, right? The further out you are from retirement, the bigger the impact we can have in terms of planning. So there's lots of tools available in our toolkit but the number of tools start to dwindle the closer you get to retirement, is what I'm getting at. And to the point of long-term retirement planning, even with the case we just went through, Mark and Sarah, it's 15 years before they retire. That's a long time. A lot's going to happen in the next 15 years that we can't even fathom, right? Just like the last 15 years. These are just projections. You can have the most detailed information. The fact is that the day after you write a financial plan or design a plan, everything is going to change tomorrow. And that's why I always recommend do your plan, but revisit it on an annual basis, because you're going to need to make tweaks along the way to keep you on track or better your situation. So it's really an ongoing process. I always tell people, we do a 40-year projection. You're not doing a plan for 40 years. You're doing 40 one-year plans. Every year, you're going to revisit it and replan according to where you're at now and what the conditions are right now.
Okay, so you actually answered my next question, which was going to be, how often should I, or we, Alex and I, should sit down with you, review our plan, knowing that things are constantly changing. So you recommend every year. So this modeling, is this available to all of your clients? And is there a fee for it?
Yeah, good question. Right now we're not charging a fee. That could change in the future, but we offer this service all of our clients. And I look at it this way. There's a lot of people out there that do charge a fee. I look at myself as a lot like a doctor. I look at myself like a doctor, a physician, or any professional, in the fact that I like to know as much about you as possible so that I can prescribe the right product, the right investment, the right insurance product to your situation. If I don't learn about your situation, you come to me and say, John, I want to save $1,000 a month in an RSP. Okay, I can dispense that RSP for you, but I don't really know if that's the right thing for you in the context of you and Alex and what you want to achieve in life. So I much prefer to spend the time to do a little bit of planning with you to make sure that whatever your goals are, that we're putting your resources in to work in the most effective way going forward.
All right, so we do have a couple of questions from people who have joined us. So one of the questions is about the cost of life insurance. Isn't life insurance expensive on a fixed income?
It depends on the type of insurance. So there's two types of insurance. There's term life insurance. So mortgage insurance is like term insurance. So you buy it. If you don't die, it doesn't pay, right? If you die, it pays, but it expires at a certain point. Then there's permanent insurance, where you're guaranteed to get your money back at some point in the future. And that permanent insurance can also have things like cash values attached to them as well, where there's an equity component. So you invest money into the insurance policy, and eventually there's going to be cash available in the policy. So you'll get your money back either through cash or through passing away. So we use those products in retirement planning, okay, where you're guaranteed to get your money back. So is it expensive? No, because it's an investment into your future, whether it's investment in terms of a death benefit in the future towards your estate plan, or an investment that you'll get back during retirement in terms of cash.
All right, thank you. And then we have another question. Question is this the example you showed us today with Mark and Sarah Smith? Is this typical, and should one allocate / allow for more spend early and taper?
Good question. So I'm assuming that means take higher income early and less income later. So you can look at retirement as three phases, right? There's first 10 years, second 10 years, and last 10 years. If we use that 30-year horizon, your first 10 years are your go-go years, right? But you're going, every day is a Saturday. Think about you, like your most expensive day is Saturday. You wake up, you go to Costco, you meet up with friends. Like, it's an expensive day. And when you retire, every day is a Saturday, at least when you initially retire, because you're doing all that. You're going golfing, you're booking travel, and you're going, and you're healthy, and you're feeling good. So you're spending money, and that's the way it should be, right? Typically, depending on your health, your middle years of your retirement, you start to slow down. It's your slow go years. You're still going to travel a bit, but it's probably not going to be as expensive from a cash flow perspective as your first 10 years. Your last 10 years, we refer to as your no-go years. You rarely travel. You're still happy and whatnot. You can be healthy and happy, but you're probably not doing the things you did in your first 10 years. So you're not going kayaking in the Allgäu. I forget the place I'm trying to think of, but you're not being as active, and things aren't expensive. It doesn't mean your last 10 years can't be expensive, because other expenses might pop up, be it long-term care, health issues. So you do have to plan for that. But I think from an active income perspective, I think it's wise to plan to spend more money in your first 10 years. But it depends on the person.
Yeah, because I know the example you shared, Mark and Sarah, they have pretty lofty goals of having a $13,000 a month income to do a lot of traveling. So I guess the beauty of this modeling system is that I can plug in what I expect to do in retirement and look at my own personal goals and my own personal goals.
Yeah, like I said, the outset, it's all about customization. So 13,000 might be higher than what you think you need. So maybe your number is 8,000. I don't know. I'm just making up a number, right? But there's people out there that might need 130,000. Like, it's ridiculous, the scope. But either way, you still need to plan it out.
Okay, so I'm looking to our Q&A, and there aren't any other questions.
Okay. Well, listen, I think this is valuable information, and we're going to plan to do seminars at least every other month. We're trying to put one together for March as well. There's a new product coming out in the market. It's called a First Home Savers Plan. I forget the exact acronym, but the government's come out with a great product to help young people save for retirement. I think it's a really great product. We're going to investigate it a bit further, get some information out to people, and hopefully do a webinar next month. Again, probably a month from now, March 23rd, but we'll send out more details about that. If anyone has any questions about what we covered today, if I can help in any way, I'd love to help. But we'll also send everyone a copy of this video as well in the next couple of days, and maybe I'll also post it to our website. But if there's no more questions, hope everyone has a great day, and stay safe out there. The roads are not good, and we'll see you in a month.
All right. Thank you, John.
Bye now.